Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Leigh Fuge, and in this video today we're going to be taking a look at Guitar Rig 6 from the guys at Native Instruments. Guitar Rig 6 is the latest update to the Guitar Rig series that Native Instruments have put out. This is a guitar plugin suite which has a bunch of simulations of classic amps, effects, cabinets, and basically anything you need to dial in the perfect guitar tone without actually needing a real amplifier. So Guitar Pro 6 can be run as a standalone application on your computer, or it can be run as a plugin in your DAW. So the way I'm running this today is I have got this set up as a plugin in my DAW, so you're just hearing all the guitar DI'd straight into my interface, and all the tones are coming from Guitar Rig. The guys at Native Instruments very kindly provided me with full access to this piece of gear. I'm not being paid for this video, but I have been given access to the software in full. So in this newest version of Guitar Rig, there are a few new things. The first thing you'll notice is there's a bit of a visual overhaul. They've made the interface a little bit cleaner and a little bit more intuitive to use, and it just looks a little fresher around the edges. They've also added 3 new amp models and 16 new effects, so the library is continuously growing, and obviously they're going to keep growing this every update. Even though Guitar Rig is completely digital, there's no actual physical components to this, it runs off an engine that they call intelligent circuit modeling. This is basically a machine learning process that operates in the software, which really accurately reproduces the qualities of analog components. So this gives their amp sims a little bit more depth and a little bit more realism. What this means from a user perspective is that as you're playing the amps, they actually feel like amps. This is one of the reasons why digital sort of simulations are never quite the same as the real thing. There's an actual feel element and a relationship between the guitar and the components of the amplifier and the speaker and everything you hear in the room that creates that feeling of playing through an amplifier. When you plug into something that's digital and it's just modeling those components, a lot of the time that feel isn't there. It might sound like your favorite amp, but it doesn't feel like your favorite amp. So the intelligent circuit modeling goes a little bit further into that field, and it allows you to get more of that tactile feel, even though you're not actually plugging into an amp. And one other new thing they've added, which is really cool, is the Matched Cabinet Pro module. So if you've used any of the previous versions of this software, you'll know that as soon as you drop an amp into the signal chain, it automatically loads the matched cabinet for that amplifier. This gives you the best result for that amp as a sort of a default preset, basically the sort of speaker combination you'd expect if you bought one of those amps. You can change this. There's a control room setting where you can kind of swap in and out other cabinets and microphones, but this time they've added Matched Cabinet Pro, which takes it a little bit further. There's some sort of more in-depth IRs and a bit more sort of digital processing on the back end for even more realism. Effects-wise, there's some really cool new things added. Some of my favorites that I've read up about so far are like the Reverb Classics module, where you can really tweak some reverbs. There's an SSL pack, which mimics like an SSL sort of mixing desk with an EQ and a compressor module. And there's some vintage compressors as well. There's also a couple of weird effects and things that sort of do some crazy things to the guitar sound. So we'll have a look at some of those as we go through as well. So aside from setting it all up and making sure it works, I've not really spent any length of time with this new version of Guitar Rig. So we're basically going to have a bit of an exploration on this video. So I'm just going to go through, look at some of the amp models, look at some of the effects, and see what kind of tones we can dial in on the fly. So I'm going to be using my Jackson Adrian Smith SDX. This is a super strat with a humbucker and 2 singles, so we should get a bunch of versatile tones from this guitar. This is plugged straight into my Focusrite 8920, and then I've got Guitar Rig 6 loaded up as a plugin in Reaper, which is the DAW that I'm using. So when you first load up Guitar Rig as a plugin, this is what you're going to see. It's going to be a blank shell. We've got 2 main headers over here on the left side. We've got presets and we've got components. Presets is obviously a preset browser where there's a bunch of different presets by different artists, and some of which that come with the software from Native Instruments. These are really cool if you just want to dive in and find a couple of cool tones to get you started. But we're going to start here at components. So the components view is basically where everything is. Now, at a glance, you can see there's a lot of different modules and a lot of different things. But up here, we've got a bit of a filter, and this makes it a little bit easier for us to dial in some stuff. So if I want to find out what amps we've got, I simply click the amplifier filter, and here are the amp models. So we've got quite a few here. There's none of them are obviously named exactly what they are, but you can pretty much guess based on, you know, the sort of names they've been given. Some of these are bass amps and most of them are guitar amps. I think there's 2 different bass amps. We've got the Bass Invader and the Bass Pro. and I think everything else is a guitar amp. So we've got the AC box. So that's obviously based on a Vox style amp, probably an AC30. So if you want to activate the module, you simply just drag it to the side here. Now this underneath here, this module is the matched cabinet pro that I told you about. This allows us to sort of blend between the cabinet and the room by moving this slider back and forth, sort of like a mic position. And we can also change the cabinet by sort of banking through. So I've gone to the Bass Pro cabinet there. I'll go back to the AC box cabinet just because that's the one we're expecting. So let's see what this sounds like straight away. So that's kind of a voxy sound. I'm actually going to add a reverb to this just because I really don't like the sound of a dry guitar amp. So I'm just going to add a bit of a studio reverb in there. So let's take a look at the Chicago. So this is actually one of the new amps that comes with this. Now, unfortunately, this is one of the things I didn't like about the software when I was playing around, is if you drop in an amp, it doesn't automatically change the cabinet. So what you do have to do sometimes is remove the modules, because you can drop things in and replace things, but the Match Cabinet Pro doesn't automatically change. So it's easy to just sort of delete them both out and drop something new in. So the Chicago is based on what I guess is going to be some kind of small blues amp. Not sure exactly what, but let's see what it sounds like. So that's got some pretty cool snappy blues tones going on there. Now obviously don't know exactly what it's modeled on, but I'm sure we can find out somewhere on the internet. So a lot of these, like I said, are obvious based on their name. So the Citrus, that's going to be based on an orange amp of some sort. Next up, we've got KOMPLETE. So this is like a low gain plexi style amp. As you can see by the visuals, they've not sort of hidden too much of what they're going for there. Next up is one of the new amps, which is the Fire Breather. So they described this as a British style amp from an American builder. So this is actually modeled on some type of Friedman amp. This is a really cool one. It's like a high gain Marshall type thing. It's got 3 different gain stages as well. So this is a lot of fun. pretty cool sounding amp. There's a lot of gain in this one, so you can actually flip over to like the third gain stage. So that's one I really like the sound of. That would be a great recording rock amp, I think. So next up on the list, we've got the Gratifier. So this is obviously like a Mesa Boogie dual rectifier style. So it actually goes to all the channels of a sort of dual rec as well. You've got the clean, you've got a raw, which is like a crunch. Then obviously you start to dig into the heavier sounds then on the vintage channel. And then you've got the modern channel, which is obviously the highest gain. There's a ton of gain in that thing, and that's not even with the gain up on full. There's also, I should mention, there's a bunch of presets as well. So if you're using an amp and you don't really know where to start with it, where it says INIT here, you'll notice there's a little arrow that just pops up, which allows you to sort of save your presets, but it's also got a few presets built in. So this is quite cool because if you wanted to just get started with this, you could dial in Vintage Crunch. And it just gives you something to start with. So there is a ton of amps. We've got High White, which is like a high watt thing. You can pretty much find something to suit whatever you might need on here. So I'm not going to go through all of these. We've got Hot Plexi, which is like a hot plexi style amp. Hot Solo is a fun one. I remember using this a lot in Guitar Rig 5. This is sort of like a Soldano thing. Also got the Jazz amp, which is a Roland JC120 style amp. This one's a little bit quieter than some of the other ones. And like the classic JC120, it's got that chorusing thing going on there. Obviously, I'm kind of skimming through these amps. You can really tweak them if you want to as well. You can really kind of get into the detail of what they can do. Jump is a cool one. This is like a modded plexi, think that kind of Eddie Van Halen style thing. So you can really crank the preamp gain on this one. You'll notice it comes with a bass set all the way up as well for a big fat sound. Some of these amps also have modifier features on the side. Like you can see, this one's got a high and a low gain range. So you could kind of have that Van Halen sound with a bit less gain if you wanted to. We've also got Lead 800, which is like a JCM 800. Plex, which is a bit more of a straight plexi sound. So if you want that classic sort of Eric Clapton, Jimi Hendrix sound. Ramifier is an amp that's been there for a while. This is the signature sort of patch of a dual rectifier by the Rammstein guitar player. So that's great if you want some real fat, heavy, down-tuned, sort of bass-heavy dual rectifier type sounds there. Then we get into my kind of amps. We've got the Twang Reverb, which is like a Fender Twin Reverb. Let's have a quick look at that one. This is a pretty cool one. We've also then got the Tweed Delight and the Tweed Man, so those kind of classic Fender blues amps. Like a real sort of Fender Twin, it's also got the vibrato setting, so you could switch that on. Then we've got two different Tweed amps. We've got the Tweed Delight, which is like a, I think it's more of a sort of standard sort of mini tweed, so you can really just crank this thing and get some cool blues tones. Then you've got the Tweed Man, which is more like a tweed bassman circuit. So this is a bit more sort of high headroom, still great for bluesy stuff. We got a few more amps left. We've got the Ultrasonic. I'm not actually sure what this one's based on. If anyone knows what that one's based on, let me know down below in the comments. It's probably going to be really obvious, but for some reason I can't think of it right now. And the Van 51, this is like a PV 5150, so think that fat, heavy rock rhythm sound. All right, so that gets us through what the amps are. Now let's look at some of the effects. So I am just going to set up a quick rig here with a clean amp. I am going to go for a Twang Reverb just because I really like Fender Twins. I'm just going to dial this in the way that I would normally set a sort of twin style amp up. This is a really good platform now for building on and adding effects. So the next thing I want to do is look at all the different effects I have available. So I've already got a reverb on, as you've heard. So let's just start looking at some drive tones first of all. So each of these filters is a different type of effect. So you can see I've got delay and echo, distortion, dynamics, EQ, filters, modifier, modulation, pitch reverb, special effects, and tools. So cabinets up here that I did skip over is the different cabinet variations, so we'll cover that in a moment. But first of all, let's look at some of these tones. So if we click on distortion, we've got a bunch of different drive pedals available. So this side panel here acts like a signal chain. So I've actually got this reverb in front of the amp. If I wanted to put it in the effects loop, I would simply drag it to this position. So you can really kind of tweak where in the chain things are. I always just put everything in front of an amp when I play live anyway in a sort of real situation. So I always do that when I use digital sims as well. So we've got a bunch of different things. Again, most of them are obvious what they are. So if I click the big fuzz, You know what that is? That's an EHX Big Mud. So when I'm just using one module, this is where that drag and drop thing really comes in handy. So if I wanted to put the cat in, which is obviously going to be like a rat style pedal, I just select it and hover over till this turns yellow and drop it in. There's a couple of other classics in there, like we've got Distortion, which is obviously like the Boss DS1. Then we've got some other stuff like ME Zone. So that's another famous Boss pedal that we all know. Probably a bit too much gain for my taste. I never really use things like that, but pretty cool if you want some of those higher gain sounds. Fuzz, this is going to be like a fuzz face vibe. Pretty cool, I'm into that. Screamer, I mean, we all know what that's going to be. Obviously the classic tube screamer type tone there. We've got a couple of other cool ones like gain booster. So this is a sort of utility pedal that would be really good for putting gain in front of something. So put this one in front. So if I'm just playing away with my usual tube screamer tone, I can boost the front end of it with this pedal. So that's a pretty cool utility one if you want to get a bit more kick out of your rig. What else have we got? We've got the Sledgehammer. This is a higher gain pedal. Again, I'm not sure what this is based on, but it's great for those high gain tones. So that one's got a ton of low end. If you want some real fat sort of heavy sounds, that's a pretty good one. Then we've got Mulholland Drive from their Tractor range. So this is quite an interesting one. I mean, interesting is a, loose term there. If you want some really weird stuff, this is one where the presets are going to be really useful, because if you don't really know how to use this thing, these are going to help. So let's go for Distant Wild. They're not really conventional drive sounds, but they're a bit of fun. Transamp is a Sansamp style drive. So let's just drop this module in. Pretty cool as like a tone shaper. A lot of people use Sansamp pedals when they're either playing through an amp that's unfamiliar to them or as a fly rig. So again, you can really dial that in if you use the Sansamp in your real rig. It's pretty cool that it's there. So there's a lot of drive pedals on offer. So we're going to take a look now at some of the other stuff. So I'm just going to put my reverb back in. So let's just get that back in the chain because I've accidentally deleted it at some point. So let's just make sure that's back in the chain. And now we're going to take a look at, let's look at some delays. So we've got 6 different delays available. So we've got the psych delay. This is like a psychedelic delay, which has got a little bit of sort of pitch shifting on there. That one's going to be a lot of fun if you like some experimental delay sounds. Got some pretty standard delays then, like a tape echo, so nothing too strange there. This is based off the Roland Space Echo. Got quad delay, which is a little bit more of a straight delay. But it does have an invert button. Not sure what that does, but it probably does something. There we go. Sort of adds like a phasery, filtery kind of thing to the back end. Got the delay man, which again is like a Electro-Harmonix memory man, so very classic sort of analog delay. And twin delay, which is again another sort of typical studio style delay. That's very kind of pristine, like a sort of a digital delay. You can kind of get the 2 different delay sides to run against each other, so I could have one quite long and one quite short. Obviously you could dial that into your own needs as well. We've also got dynamics. So here is where we've got a bunch of different compressors. So if you're a fan of compressors, you got everything from like a fast compressor, a noise gate, noise reduction, a limiter. These are pretty cool. You've got the solid bus comp and the solid dynamics. These are based off SSL mixing desk compressors. Great for sort of tightening up and fattening up your kind of funk riffs. I don't really use compressors too much myself, but they're very handy to have. These three here, VC160, 76, and 2A, are all based on very classic compressors as well. So these are from Soft-Tube, so that's pretty cool. These are very high quality modeling. They sort of emulate classic compressors. There's a few different ones, and you can kind of use this software as a plugin to sort of work with other instruments in your DAW as well. Like we've got a transient master. That would be pretty cool on drums because you can really fine tune those transients. Don't know what it's going to sound like on guitar. Kind of makes the initial attack of the notes a little more forward. EQ, again, we've got a bunch of different equalizers. These are probably more for fine-tuning tones, you know, if you use different EQs for various sort of things. Like that's sort of a shelving EQ. We've got a graphic EQ for fine-tuning. We've got a parametric EQ. Solid EQ is pretty cool because this is, again, off an SSL mixing desk. So you can kind of get that sort of hi-fi SSL sound. Pretty cool just for sort of tweaking the mix a little bit more. Filters, this is where the fun really starts. So in this section, we've got a bunch of different filters. So again, I'm not going to go through all of them, but my favorite one is the auto filter. So I love an auto wah. So I'm going to crank up the sensitivity on this one. Always a lot of fun to be had with those. We've got a couple of sort of typical wahs as well, like you've got the cry wah, which is a crybaby style wah. Now the downside to these is in this form, they only really take the position of a wah set in one position because obviously we don't have a foot controller. So a real wah, that's going to be another wah style. Obviously you'd have to manipulate it like that in real time, which isn't really ideal. You'd need a separate kind of MIDI controller to really get the most out of those. We've got a formant filter and a peak filter. These are from the Tractor range as well, and a filter bank. So let's see what the filter bank does. So those are kind of odd filtery type things. Don't know how much use I would personally get out of those, but they're pretty cool. Formant filter. Kind of gives your guitar a bit of a vocal quality there. And then we've got peak filter. Kind of filtery, wiry type thing, pretty fun. Modifier, these are sort of synthy type elements, I guess. We've got like an analog sequencer, we've got an envelope, an LFO. So these are pretty cool if you want to, you know, make your guitar not sound like a guitar. I'll be honest, I don't really know how these things work. Okay, they're not going to work for me. I'm not really the sort of guitar player that's going to use much of that anyway, so we'll skim over that one. Modulation. So here again, now we've got a bunch of modulation effects. So these are all the usual suspects. Choral. So all your usual chorus type effects there. We've got the Electric Lady. This is like the EHX Electric Mistress flanger. The Ensemble, which I'm guessing is another chorus pedal. That one is probably based off the Boss chorus ensemble. Then we've got a couple of different ones. Let's have a look at the flanger chorus. So this, I think, is probably going to be the TC Electronics one. Great for all those weird and wonderful wobbly sounds. Phaser 9, I think we know what that one is. Everyone's favorite orange phaser pedal. Rotator, now this is an effect I really like. This is based off of Leigh. Always love Leigh style effects on anything. This is cool because you can adjust the pan. So if you're listening to this on headphones or on really wide stereo speakers, you can have the central, or you can kind of pan it left and right as well, which is pretty cool. So let's go right. That's pretty cool. You can really fine tune where that Leigh sits. What else have we got? We've got a tremolo. have stereo tune. So this is some kind of pitch modulation, sort of stereo spreader thing. Kind of chorusy, kind of Leslie-ish, but I'm not really sure what that's based on. So there's quite a lot of modulation stuff here. We've got the Freak. This, I think this is a ring mod actually. Ring mod with tremolo. I'm yet to find a good use for a ring modulator, so if anyone has any suggestions on how you can actually use one, let me know. So pitch, this is a fun section because this is where we get our pitch modulation. So octaver, this is always a fun one. Not very good at polyphonic stuff, but it works. It's a pretty fun octaver. That would be really cool paired with a fuzz. So if I was to go and get my fuzz face, it's gonna be hours of fun with that. So next up on the pitch, we have a harmonic synthesizer. Obviously you can see you can blend a lot of different things in with this. So again, presets is a good place to start. Pretty fun. Pedal pitch, this is going to be like your typical Digitech whammy. Now again, we can't manipulate this in real time because we don't have a controller. We can control it with a mouse, but we're probably not going to be doing too much of that. Reso chord. Now this is a fun one. I've read up about this, and this is a sort of like a chord stab thing. So if you want to put some keyboard style lines into your playing, this is a really cool module. So I'm going to do something a bit fun. I'm going to keep it in C. I can change the key just by dragging, but I will keep it in C. And what we can do here is we can add different chord types. So major and minor chords. So I'm going to keep on major, and I'm going to do a, let's do a 7/9 chord. That's pretty cool. We can do all these different chord variations. Or I could turn single notes into fifth chords, or turn it off altogether. Let's go to fifth chords. So it's pretty cool because you can sort of make up different chords just by playing single notes. I really like that 7/9 note. That's pretty fun, and I can do minor as well if I want to. Maybe the 7/9 isn't the right chord for a minor, but maybe like a minor 9 sharp 11. Pretty cool. You can have a lot of fun with that one. Reverb. Now there's a bunch of different reverbs. You've heard me use the studio reverb. I'm just going to turn that one off for a second and look at some of these. So we've got the ice verb. So that is like a reverb. It's got a freeze switch as well. That's pretty cool because you can hold on to things like a freeze pedal. This is a very kind of sparkly reverb, a lot of top end on this. Octaverb, this is kind of like a shimmer verb. This is a really cool one. This is one of the most interesting reverbs in the new guitar rig. So there's lots of cool reverb textures you can play with there. We've got a ton of them here. So we've got vintage verb. This is pretty cool for people who just want to dial in a quick reverb. So this works just on a slider with a mix control. So we've got a couple of different settings here. We've got gold, short and long, silver, short and long, studio, dual, amp and dub. Now my guess is that the gold, short and long are going to be Marshall style reverbs, and the silver, short and long are going to be Fender style reverbs. Studio spring, dual spring, amp spring, so like a typical amp spring reverb, and a dub style spring reverb. So actually, sorry, it goes from a plate, sorry. So gold and silver are plate reverbs, and these four are spring reverbs. So this is pretty cool because you can really easily dial in a reverb here. All you've got to worry about is the mix control, so how much of the reverb do you want compared to the dry signal. Really easy for people who don't want to spend too much time tweaking. So let's put a bit more mix on that. So a silver short. And a amp spring. So again, loads of different options there. RC48, this is one of the new ones. So this is a super tweakable reverb. So you can see there's a ton of different options here. So again, you can start with the presets. There's quite a lot of presets for this one actually. So if you wanted a grainy echo verb. Perhaps you want a classic space, like a music club round. These reverbs, the RC48 and the RC24, are really designed for people who really want to tweak. So the 24 is a little bit easier to tweak than the 48. You can see the sort of main types here. So you've got room, small hall and large hall. And then the 48 is hall, random hall, reverb and effects. So there's a couple of different sort of tail end modulation things going on here as well. We've got the RAUM, which is again one of the new ones. This is sort of like a do all reverb. So this has a couple of different modes. This has airy, grounded and cosmic. So this is where the reverbs can get a little bit weird. So we've got that, that's pretty cool. We've got some tractor reverbs as well. The tractor stuff is always a little bit more interesting, kind of grainy in the top end as well. It's quite interesting textures. Special effects, we've got more ring modulators, we've got a grain delay. So let's see what the grain delay sounds like. Pretty cool if you want to create some synthy type lines. Reverse grain, this could be quite interesting. Well, that's one of those effects that if you know how to use that, it's probably pretty cool. These tractor effects are not really conventional guitar effects, they're a bit more out there. So again, I don't really know what the purpose of those is. From my perspective, I'm quite a straight up guitar player. I like the simpler tones, but they're pretty cool if you're someone who uses those kind of things. Then we've got tools, we've got some sort of mono stereo splits and crossovers, some utility stuff for people who really want to tweak the overall signal chain. So the final thing we're going to take a look at now is the cabinet setup. So I am just going to go back to another amp. I'm going to get rid of that one. I'm actually going to use the, where's it gone? The fire breather, that sort of Soldano thing, just on a moderate kind of rock gain. That'll do, that's the kind of sound I want. So we're going to go to cabinets now, and we're using Match Cabinet Pro, which allows me to mix and match different cabinets. So earlier on I mentioned we can blend this. So I can go from a close mic on the cabinet to a sort of further away room type mic. So that's really useful if you just want to blend in a bit of ambient space. But if you really want to go deep, you pick Control Room Pro. So we've still got the legacy ones here, the old Control Room and the Match Cabinet, but the Pro ones are where the fun really starts. So what I can do in Control Room is I can really blend loads of different cabinets with this amp. So I've actually got 8 different slots. So I could pick 8 different cabinets technically if I wanted to. You probably wouldn't use 8 at once with one amp, but you know, you could if you wanted to. So this has instantly defaulted to the 2x12 AC Silver, which is like a Voxstar cabinet. But this is where the tweaking starts. So I can click this and I can basically select whatever I want. So let's say I want to use a 4x12 UK 60s green. So that's going to be like a Celestian greenback type thing. Next up, I've got my mic. So this is currently defaulted to a ribbon mic, a 121. I can change it to a Shure SM57 or a Neumann U87. So let's go for the U87. Now that is right now center of the cone. So the cap here, this is the position in comparison to the speaker. So cap is right above the center of the speaker cone. Cap edge is just off center. And then we've also got the edge of the cone. So this is sort of the far outside of the speaker. So we've got 3 main positions. Each one of these does drastically affect how the mic picks up the tone. So I like the cap edge there. I like the U87. Let's see what a 57 sounds like. pretty cool, nice and direct. I do like the 87, has a bit more of a sort of a warm bottom end. Really cool sounds. So at this point, I can actually control the bass and treble response here as well. Think of this like, I guess, resonance and presonance of the cab. So I could add more low end. And then the air is sort of, again, the room space. So you can see when I turned the air up, it became a bit more sort of not reverby, because it didn't really add reverb, but it added sort of a sense of distance from the speaker, I suppose. So that's pretty cool. Again, lots of tweaking options. So the mics available really does depend on the cabinet selected. So certain cabinets have more IRs loaded than the others, depending on, again, different mic choices. So if I select the 412 Vintage, for instance, that has more mics, but it only has one mic position. I can only have this on the edge of the cap, but I've got a lot more mics to choose from. So I've got 2 ribbon mics, I've got 2 SM57. That second one's a bit brighter. I've got a couple of other Neumanns, a U47. Well, the 67, again, different kind of tone response there. 441. Lots of tweaking options. So whatever your sort of personal mic choices are, you can probably find it in here with different combinations of cabinets. Speakers and cabinets make a big difference to how an amp sounds. So if I wanted a bit more of a modern tight sound, I might pick a modern 4x12. All really does make a big difference. I mean, obviously, you can see there's a ton to choose from. I really like the UK 60 Screenback with the cap edge with an 87. That's my preferred kind of cab tone. That's got the right amount of sort of bite and push for me. You can then start to control the phase. So again, we're tweaking here. Control the phase, the amount of room that's mixed in. We can also pan this, so if you're using multiple cabinets, you can pan them left and right. So let's say I wanted this cabinet here, the 4x12 UK green, and I also wanted to add one of the 4x12 vintages. What I could do is the vintage, I could pan this hard right, and I could pan this cabinet hard left. So I can do this for up to 8 cabinets. Now, if I come over to this final tab, this is like my mixer. So what I can do here is I can blend all the different cabinet choices together. So if I just play the 60s green, you'll just hear this on the left side. And the other one just on the right side. Then I can put them together. And really dial in as many different tones as I can possibly imagine. So we've pretty much covered every key element of guitar rig there. basically all the modules you can select from. Now we're going to take a look at some presets. So the preset browser is really, really useful for people who just want to get started and they don't want to spend too much time tweaking or spending ages trying out different combinations. If you've got a sound in your head, you can probably find something in here that's going to get you in the right ballpark. So there's a couple of different options for how to choose presets. So we've got input source, which is what you're plugging into it. So obviously we're plugging a guitar in, so we pick that. But if you were, going to track vocals for this, you could pick vocal and it'll bring up the best presets for a vocal. Or likewise, there's a lot of bass stuff in here, a lot of stuff you can use with keys as well. I'm just going to leave that blank for now. FX type, obviously I can look for amps and cabinets or distortion. So if I wanted some presets that are distorted presets or with delay, I can choose that. Characters, these are sort of just descriptive words. So if I wanted a modulated preset, this is going to load up everything with modulation. So I could pick tremolo in C minor. And that's pretty cool. That's an interesting sounding preset there. Or we could go for fuzzy formants. Pretty fun. If I wanted a pluck, a harmonic synth LFO stereo. That's pretty cool. You can kind of see here how intense the signal chain has gotten. So obviously when I was dialing things in, I was just dropping single units in and out so you could see. But here you can really see how complex this has gotten. So we've got a compressor, then we've got this sort of signal splitter, we've got a couple of splitters, an LFO's in there, we're using the Soldano, the Control Room Pro, there's more splitters, Verb, delay. You can build some huge rigs on this thing. So there's that, the characteristic setting, amplifiers, so you can find presets for specific amps. So if you really know what I want to do is I want to play with a Tweed amp, Tweed Delight, click Tweed Delight, and here are my Tweed presets. Or if I really wanted some plexi presets. Pretty fun. Then we've also got some heavier presets, so hot solo, I could go for hot solo lead. Or Van 51 metalcore stereo. All the heavy presets are there too. We've got genres. So again, if you want to play a specific genre, if you want to play country, here are your country presets. Or for instance, funk and soul. So let's go for a freak funk. Lots of sort of auto-wari type things there. Hip hop, you've got a couple of different things. Dusty vinyl. Or dirt injector. Pretty cool textural stuff there. You've got metal, you've got pop, you've got rock, you've got ambient. So ambient can be quite fun. And then the absolute final area for us to look at is the artist presets. So there's not a ton yet, but Native Instruments have said they're going to be putting a lot more in with further updates. So we've got a couple of presets from some big names like Pete Thorne. So we've got a Pete Thorne Ambient Wah. Actually, you can sort of filter these as well. So I've actually got ambient selected there. So it's only bringing up the Pete Thorne ambient pack. If I remove the ambient filter, there's more. We've also got some from Vernon Reid. So let's go for Ghost Guitar A2. Okay, so Vernon Reid's put some pretty strange ones in there. And we've also got Richard Z from Rammstein. So pretty much presets from a bunch of big players. As I said though, Native are going to be adding a lot more with further updates. So there you go guys, there is a bit of an overview, first impressions, kind of play around with Native Instruments Guitar Rig 6. Like I said at the start, this is pretty much the first time I've looked at this. I've opened it up, you know, made sure it all works, made sure everything was connected, but this is the first time I've really kind of looked through all the modules and heard what they sound like. I've been a fan of Guitar Rig for a long time. I've had version 5 for, you know, I can't even tell you how long, pretty much since it came out. I had version 4 before that, so version 6 is great. It's a bit of sort of a step up. The overall audio quality seems more cohesive. It definitely has a bit more real feel now. I think they've definitely nailed some of the sort of component modeling stuff there, and I think it's definitely a step up in terms of how intuitive it is. I mean, as you saw there, we were pretty much discovering that on the fly, and it's pretty easy to get to grips with. So hopefully, if you guys try this out, to which there's a link in the description below, so go check it out if you're interested. Hopefully you guys find this just as intuitive when you're sort of dialing in your own tones as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know down below in the comments what you thought of the tones from Guitar Rig 6. How does this compare to other amp sims you've heard? You know, it's a great discussion to have. And also, where do you stand on the idea of using a plugin or a software package versus a real amp? Throw that down below in the comments as well. And while you're down there, don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys very soon. Thanks for watching.